Whether you're new to Magic or you've already memorized a stack like it's poetry, one truth remains: knowing your archetypes is the key to victory and to avoiding humiliating defeat. In Archetypes 101, we'll journey through the grand halls of Brewpug, Aristocrats, Combo, and even those weird brews that really shouldn't work but somehow do. You'll learn what makes each tick and how to bring it to its knees. For our second episode, we shall dive into everyone's favorite villain origin story, Stax. This archetype is needed to create balance in a world of fast mana and faster combos, but is loathed when left unchecked. Stax is essentially playing permanents that slow everyone else down to what is almost a standstill at best and a crawl at second best. They set the rules with loopholes for themselves to get to their own win cons. There are 3 ways a Stax player can accomplish this hourglass warfare. 1. Removing resources by forcing sacrifices or destruction, examples being Smokestack, Anawan, the Ruined Sage, or Braid's Cabal Minion. 2. Taxing the shit out of spells and abilities until folks can't afford to cast them, examples being Aura of Silence, Thalia, or Suppression Field. 3rd. Tapping down resources on the board before they can be used. Examples include Stasis and Winter Orb. A great commander that breaks parity with the hallmark effects of Stax is Winota. She reads, whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Once set up, you will not need to spend mana, activate resources, or cast spells to continue building your board state. A good win con for her is to have multiple combat phases and deal loads of combat damage. Her color identity of Boros makes her a great commander to utilize Stax in. Here is what an ideal Stax board would look like with Winota. First, we have Grand Abolisher, a 2-white human cleric that will synergize well with Winota's abilities. It also prevents players from casting spells or activating abilities during your turn. This can prevent counters and other kinds of responses to your actions. Ether Sword Canonist will be another great human Stax piece to add to the board to prevent players from playing multiple non-artifact spells a turn. Eidolon of Rhetoric and Deafening Silence are other great cards that prevent folks from casting more than 1 spell per turn, but they're not humans. Still great to add, just doesn't synergize as well. Then let's take a look at Spirit of the Labyrinth, which is also, sadly, not a human, but does still prevent extra card draw across the board, which is great resource denial. A card that does a similar effect is Stranglehold, but with the added bonus of preventing opponents from playing extra turns. Another resource denial piece would be Leonin Arbiter, which prevents players from searching their library unless they pay 2. This would make tutors like Demonic or Enlightened Tutor essentially cost 2 extra to cast. Add a Winter Orb to prevent players from untapping more than 1 land per turn, and essentially, you are preventing multiple turns for opponents, the casting of multiple spells per turn, untapping multiple lands, drawing multiple cards, activating abilities during your turn, and searching libraries. This can and will slow the game down long enough to deal some serious damage with Winota's humans. Some great creatures for her are cards like Combat Celebrant, which can give an additional combat phase and untap your attacking creatures. Blade Historian gives double strike to attacking creatures. Then Angrath's Marauders states, if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. Paired with Blade Historian, that essentially means dealing 4 times the damage per creature. With multiple combats and Winota triggers each turn, this can easily win you games as your opponents struggle to find answers big enough to deal with your board presence. Get why Stax is everyone's villain origin story yet? Roll credits. Some other popular Stax commanders include, but are not limited to, Grand Arbiter, the commander most synonymous with the archetype. He reads, white and blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. Derevi, Imperial Tactician, enables you to tap or untap permanents whenever creatures ETB or deal combat damage. Paired with a card like Stasis, which forces the skip of untapped phases, Derevi is pretty intimidating. Urza, Lord High Artificer, is another option for Stax. He's more powerful and builds without it, but pairing his abilities with cards like Winter Orb is arguably insane. What's your favorite or most loathed Stax commander? Let me know in the comments. Let's see how we can beat the Stax players' deck to the ground, much like how they grind down our will to continue playing the game. Today we have a special guest, Shelby, to discuss his strategies for Stax.
So, I'm Shelby. I like Stax. I started playing Stax because the local group that I played with at the time of getting into Magic and Commander in general was a lot of combo heavy playstyles. Storm, things of that nature. At that time, I found a card, Liesa, Shroud of Dust, and her effect that allows every player to, when they cast a spell, they lose 2 life. And then you avoid commander tax by paying 2 life per instance of commander tax instead of 2 mana. It spoke to me because at the time I wasn't as fluent with deck building and things of that nature. So I built a white-black Death and Taxes deck. And I found cards like Painful Quandary, Winter Orb, Mana Web, and cards of those natures, and that they started to excite me. Just anything that could deny something while still getting some kind of value out of it. Even if that meant being the arch enemy of the table because people didn't like it. As far as like the deck's biggest weaknesses, I mean, just being able to get out-resourced by somebody. From the times I've played, that's usually what ends up happening. Somebody just outvalues and is able to outweigh the stacks through their own means, especially if you can go to the land of attrition in the long form. So like if they've got like a Ristic Study, paying the tax on it, like they don't get the draw, you lose 1 mana, but now like you're slowing them down at their own game. In my experience, like that's really about it. I would say the strongest archetypes, you got your control, so you got your counter spells, you have a lot of your easy targeted removal or bounce spells in blue and white, being able to remove the pieces that I have on the board, or conversely, Voltron. You got like Propaganda, Sphere of Safety, Ghostly Prison that make it to where you had to pay to attack somebody. Voltron can kind of get around that by only having 1 creature that actually has to get paid for. I would say combo players or people that creature spam or like just spell spam in general are kind of typically going to be weak against a deck like that, with being resource denying or adding extra cost to the things that they're trying to do. So when they might have like an early tempo where they're kind of getting stuff out early, and then I place something down like a Trim the Sphere or a Damping Sphere or Rug of Smothering, Liesa, or Painful Quandary as well, like make you lose life, discard cards, like deny some of your resources as you're kind of going further. People that are playing those strategies and archetypes are the ones that typically will be shut down the hardest.
And my dear, dear friend whom I sometimes despise, could you tell us why you play and enjoy this archetype?
What excites me about the play style and the archetype in general is tax evasion in Magic is rampant, and I'm here to help stop that. That is kind of one of the things that I kind of laugh about that really kind of sits well with me when I'm playing. That's what I like about the play style a lot. The life resource denial that Stax kind of has, those kind of effects are what really drew me into the game. That was the resource I decided to focus on denying or removing, because in my local play group I was going up against decks that had very explosive turns, and they'd get explosive because they'd have things that would make their spells cheaper, or they were playing a lot of control decks. My specific deck is an Atraxa Praetor's Voice deck, so it's the 4 colors. It's a tribute deck because they're one of the guys that I played Magic with when I first started playing. He played an Atraxa Poison deck, and he liked my Death and Taxes Liesa deck. Well, when he passed away, I decided to take the Atraxa that I got, which was the Gilded Foil one, and I was going to build a tribute deck with that as the commander. And I initially started doing Super Friends because that excited me, but it just kind of didn't feel me. And then I thought about it some, and I was like, let's do a Death and Taxes like Liesa deck and just give it Simic. And in a game of Magic, sometimes people may not like playing against stacks, but I've had it in my own experience where I've played against people and they recognize some of the pieces I have on board are actually stopping or slowing down the one player that's had already gained a massive advantage on their own few turns, to where it's beneficial to have my stuff around to keep that person from being able to win, to where they can get to their win or be able to get to the point where they're able to outweigh some of the advantages that one person has had and slow them down.
Personally, I genuinely despise playing against this archetype, especially when it's used to completely lock down the board. That's largely because of my abysmal attention span, if we're being completely honest. Through my research, I've learned that there are plenty of folks that do enjoy playing against it because they see it as a puzzle to solve. How do I get around this? What do I do? How do I get to my win con? It can be really hard to do, and I think that's why they enjoy it. It's a great challenge. I think we should all endeavor to change our perspectives on archetypes like this when we can, because they are vital to balancing the format as a whole. That being said, let's take a look at what the community says they enjoy or dislike about Stax as an archetype. One of the only decks that does Stax right is Winota. Playing Stax for the sole purpose of slowing the game down and making it last 2 to 3 hours is miserable. Playing Stax to slow your opponents down while you accelerate is fine, as long as they are aware of what they are playing into. Stax? Those are toxic. Fortunately, I like toxic. I love Stax in Commander. My only issue with Stax is when the Stax player doesn't have a win condition they are shooting for and only intends on stalling out the game. As long as they are also trying to win the game, I find it very enjoyable. Stax is cool. It became my first reason to run more interaction. Someone once asked, how does mono white win the game? By stopping everyone else from playing the game. Stax is fine. It gives the table a puzzle to solve. I'd rather see a Stax deck in casual than a combo deck. At high power and CEDH, it's really useful and almost necessary to stop fast combos. At low power, it's frustrating and should be avoided. I love Stax, Stax loves me. Me and Stax are a happy family. Stax, in my opinion, is a great archetype. People just don't find dealing with resource denial as fun as dealing with an aggro deck. Stax is fun to play against whenever you're not attempting to play lockout. Stax is a valid way to build a deck in my opinion, but it requires game knowledge and solid deck building for it to actually work. On top of that, Stax decks challenge players to build more resilient and versatile decks. Stax is incredibly annoying to play against because it slows the game down progressively, which also forces every play that you do make to have to be maximum impact, which means having to spend time thinking and coordinating with other players to dismantle the Stax player's board. Stax is not for people with skill issues, to play with or against. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment your favorite archetype, and subscribe for more great content. See you Saturday for more Magic the Gathering shenanigans.